The restaurant was full that night. Candlelight, laughter, 14 people, minus one. They had ordered wine, brought flowers, her favourite cake. But when the waiter came over, he didn't serve the appetizers. He leaned down and said, "I'm sorry. This reservation was cancelled." A hush fell over the table. Forks paused mid-air. Someone asked, "Cancelled? By who?" They all turned to look at my husband. He looked down at his phone. There was a message. One sentence. "You didn't protect me, so I protected myself." No screaming, no scene, just absence. Because this year, they made the dinner without me, so I made sure they'd taste what that felt like, and I didn't show up. She set the table herself that year. White cloth, gold trim, a seat for everyone, except for me. It was my first birthday dinner with his family, her 61st. I was nervous, eager. Wearing a soft blue dress his sister said looked quiet enough. When we arrived, everyone hugged each other, laughed, moved into formation like they'd done this 1,000 times, but no one told me where to sit. So I stood, until someone finally gestured, not unkindly, just distracted, to the end. It was the folding chair, the one that didn't match, slightly lower, wobbly. I sat there for 3 hours, passed plates, smiled on cue, and when they toasted her, I raised my glass too. But she never looked at me. She was talking to his ex, the one they still invited to birthdays, because she grew up with us. That night, I washed the dishes, cut leftover cake, and I told myself, next year will be different. I just didn't know how long that next year would take. It didn't happen all at once, not like in the movies. No shouting, no slamming doors, just little things. So small, you'd feel petty for noticing. Like the group photo she posted, where I was half cropped out, like I didn't fit the frame, or the group chat for family updates. I only found out it existed because my husband forgot to mute it. They said it was an accident, that someone must have removed me by mistake, that they'd add me right back. They didn't. Then there was the peach cobbler. I brought it warm, homemade, placed it right next to the store-bought cake. No one touched it. Hours passed. People reached over it. I wrapped it up in foil, still untouched, and took it home. My husband said, "You're overthinking it. That's just how my mum is. She's not trying to hurt you." But maybe that was the problem. She didn't have to try. She just didn't care, and neither did he. Not enough to make it stop. She called me weeks before the birthday, said nothing about a party, just asked, "Do you still have the account for the restaurant app?" I said yes. Of course I did. I was the one who always made the reservations. She said, "Perfect. We'll need a table for 14. Same place as last year." And that was it. No, "Are you coming?" No, "Hope you can make it." Just logistics. A few days later, I asked my husband, "Did your mum mention the dinner?" He paused, too long, and then shrugged. They thought it'd be best to keep things small this year. Just family. Just family. I looked at the guest list. It included the ex again. It included her bridge partner. It even included the florist, but not me. And the name on the reservation. It was still mine. So I bought the gift, wrapped it in silver paper, left it on the hallway bench. No note, no explanation. That night, I made dinner for just me and my daughter. We laughed. We danced in pyjamas. And I didn't speak to my husband for 3 days. I didn't make a scene. Didn't post a quote on Facebook. Didn't cry in the kitchen. I just opened my laptop and started applying. Tutoring jobs, freelance editing, anything that let me use my words instead of wasting them on people who never listened. The first week was slow. Small invoices, late nights, but it was mine. Every dollar, every client, every little win. I started keeping a jar, a clear glass one with a label that read, "Proof. Proof I could do this. Proof I didn't need to ask for space at someone else's table. I could build my own." I lit a candle every time I hit a goal. It wasn't much, but it smelled like lavender and control. One night, my daughter asked, "Why do you always work when it's dark?" I smiled, because that's when it's quiet, and quiet is when things grow. She nodded, didn't fully understand, but I did. For the first time, I did. It didn't come with applause. No one stood in a room and toasted me, but one afternoon, an email landed in my inbox. Subject line, "You probably don't remember me." It was from a student I'd tutored months ago. She wrote, "I got into the college I never thought I could, and I remembered what you said, that my words were worth something." I stared at the screen for a while, long enough for the pasta to overboil, long enough to feel seen. A few days later, one of my blog posts started to spread. People shared it, commented, tagged friends. They weren't family. They didn't owe me anything. But they read my words and stayed. I printed one of the comments and taped it to the fridge, right where that old photo of his family used to be. That night, as I was cleaning up, my daughter whispered, "Mum, you're on the computer a lot, but you smile more now." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I just said, because now, I finally like who I'm working for. It happened on a Thursday. I was dropping off my daughter at her weekend art club. Same routine, same building, same small talk. But one of the other mums turned and said, "Oh, you're Ava, right? The writer?" I blinked, paused. Not his wife, not the one from the background of the photos. Just Ava. It sat differently on my skin. Later that day, I opened a new email account. Just my name. No hyphen, no second guess. I designed a logo, printed new cards. Nothing fancy, just white on matte black, but it felt like armour. That evening, I went to the store for groceries, and instead of rushing, instead of keeping my head down, I let myself wander. Bought flowers without waiting for someone to deserve them. Cooked dinner not because anyone asked, but because I was hungry. Sat down without waiting to be invited. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was borrowing space. I had become someone no one else named. It came in the mail. Not a message, not a call, an envelope, cream-coloured, heavy paper, no return address. I opened it slowly, half expecting some distant cousin's wedding. But it wasn't. It was a birthday dinner, her birthday dinner. Same place as last year, same time, same number of guests, and one line at the bottom, "Hope you can make it." No apology, no mention of what happened, not even my name, just an assumption that I'd return like nothing happened. The mailman had looked confused when handing it to me. Mrs. I took it, didn't correct him. Just stared at the envelope, at the blank spot where someone could have said, "We were wrong." Instead, they gave me time and place, like that was enough. But what they didn't know was this time I had options, and I no longer waited for someone to tell me where I belonged. I stood at the closet for 10 minutes, hand on a dress I hadn't worn in 2 years, dark green. Simple. Still smelled like store tags and nerves. The same one I wore at her 61st birthday, the one where I sat at the folding chair, the one where I passed plates and got passed over. I held it up to the mirror. Still fit, still elegant. But I couldn't tell if it looked like armour or surrender. My daughter walked in, saw the dress, asked, "Are we going?" I said, "Would you want to?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Only if we sit where we want this time." I smiled, bit my lip, Because that was it, wasn't it? It wasn't about revenge, or even closure. It was about whether I believed that I could walk in without shrinking, whether I could show up not for them, but for the version of me that used to wait to be invited, the one who brought cobbler and left with crumbs. This time, I'd sit wherever I chose, or not at all. I opened the restaurant app again. Same place, same time. But this time, I made a second reservation. Table for 3, by the window, under my name, not the group one, not the big table tucked in the back, just ours. I didn't tell anyone, not even my husband, especially not him. He had texted earlier, "Hope you'll join, they're trying this time." I didn't respond, because I didn't need to ask for a seat anymore. I could create one. I packed a small gift bag, one for my daughter, inside a notebook and pen with a note that read, "You get to write your place in this story." I wore the green dress, not because they remembered it, but because I did. We arrived 10 minutes early. The hostess blinked. "Are you part of the Simmons party?" I smiled. "No, I'm the one under Ava Caldwell." She scanned the list, then smiled back. "Right this way." And just like that, we sat down before anyone else arrived, at a table with no ghosts, no folding chairs, just space and choice. We arrived first, not late, not flustered, not looking for approval. The hostess walked us to our table by the window, the one I had chosen, the one under my name. My daughter squeezed my hand, not nervously, but proudly. I could see the big table being prepared behind us. Napkins folded, names arranged. Ours wasn't there, not even a question. We ordered lemon water, shared a plate of bread, talked about school, and then they arrived, a ripple of coats and perfume and polite chaos, laughter louder than needed, kisses on cheeks, glances tossed like coins. Then someone noticed us, noticed me. It was his sister. She paused, looked at our table, then leaned into her mother's ear. They all turned. I didn't wave, didn't smile, just reached for my daughter's glass and filled it. The server came over, addressed me by name. "Ms. Caldwell, are you ready to order?" Ms. Caldwell, not Mrs. Anything. The room felt quieter, even though no one had stopped talking, and across the restaurant, my husband stood frozen, holding a gift bag. He saw us, but didn't walk over, just stood there, between 2 tables, 2 worlds, and I let him. The music was soft, but nothing felt smooth. At their table, people passed plates, clinked glasses, laughed in all the wrong places. I watched as her cake arrived. Too many candles for the silence that followed. They sang, "Happy birthday," but off-key and half-hearted. She smiled anyway, the kind of smile that doesn't touch your eyes, the kind she wore every year like jewellery. My daughter leaned in. "Why do they look sad?" I answered with a shrug. Because the truth was too long for a dinner conversation. Across the room, my husband sat stiffly. He hadn't taken off his coat, hadn't even placed the gift down. Instead, he kept glancing at us, at our table with no crowd, no performance, just peace. The server came with our dessert, chocolate mousse, 2 spoons. My daughter giggled. "Can I eat yours too?" I smiled. "Only if you ask nicely." We shared, quietly, fully. At the other table, they took photos, held up glasses, posted to stories, but no one looked at each other for more than a second. And when the toast began, he stood up, gift bag still in hand, then sat right back down, didn't say a word, didn't raise his glass, just held the bag tighter. They brought out champagne, 2 bottles, gold foil. Too much sparkle for such dim eyes. A toast was coming. You could feel it in the way people straightened, raised glasses, shifted smiles. My husband stood, still holding the gift bag, still unsure which direction to face. He cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. It means a lot to my mother. And then a voice cut through, small, clear, unplanned. But she didn't invite my mum. Every head turned, even mine. My daughter was sitting beside me, calm, curious, not angry, just confused. If it's her birthday, and she wanted family. Why leave out the person who's always kind to everyone? No one answered. My husband blinked. His mouth opened, then shut again. At the big table, someone coughed. Someone else looked away. My mother-in-law stared at her cake, at the name written in pink icing. No one moved, so my daughter did. She got up, walked across the room, placed a small envelope beside the cake, then turned to her grandmother and said, "Next time, just invite all of us, or none of us." She walked back, sat down, and ate the last spoon of mousse without flinching. I didn't speak. Didn't need to, because she had said what I never dared, and somehow it landed softer, because it came from love. But it landed all the same. I checked the time. Dessert plates were empty. Laughter at their table had faded into fragmented whispers. My daughter looked up at me. "Are we done?" I nodded. Not because we were tired, but because we were full of truth, of peace. I stood, took a small paper bag from beneath the table. Inside was a box, wrapped in soft silver. I walked across the room, not to confront, not to explain, just to place the gift, gently, right in the centre of the big table. Someone shifted. Someone else looked away. No one said a word. The mother-in-law kept staring at the cake, still uneaten, still perfect on the outside. I turned, walked back, felt my daughter's fingers slip into mine. We headed toward the exit, past the coat rack, past the waitstaff whispering in corners. Outside, the wind was cooler. But I wasn't cold. We didn't rush, didn't look back. Because there's something powerful about leaving on your own terms, without slamming doors, without shouting, just choosing peace louder than they chose silence. The car was quiet, only the hum of tyres on wet pavement. My daughter had fallen asleep. Her head leaned against the window, hair tangled from the wind. I drove slowly. No music, just stillness. And then a memory, one I hadn't invited, but it came anyway. Her 61st birthday. Same restaurant, same long table. I had arrived early, brought peach cobbler I baked from scratch, wore the green dress, smiling too much. There were hugs, quick and distracted. Someone pointed at the chairs. "You can sit there." There was a folding chair at the far end, next to the kids. Not next to my husband, not near the head of the table, not even in the circle, just there. So I sat, passed dishes, laughed at jokes, and when it came time for pictures, I was cropped out of the frame, not deliberately, just conveniently. That night, my husband said I was too sensitive, that they meant well, that family stuff is messy. But I remember how my chest tightened when I smiled through the toast, how I drove home with mascara bleeding into my collarbone, and how I told myself, maybe next year they'd see me, but they didn't. Until I stopped asking. We got home just after 9. The porch light had flickered on, soft and golden. I tucked my daughter into bed. She mumbled in half sleep, "Next time, we sit wherever we want," and drifted off. I walked into the garage, quiet, cool concrete under bare feet, in the corner, a folded metal chair. Same one we kept, just in case they ran out of seats, just in case I had to squeeze in somewhere, just in case they remembered I was part of the family. I picked it up. It felt lighter than I remembered, or maybe I had just gotten stronger. I opened the side door, set the chair down beside the trash bins, not violently, Not bitterly, just gently, deliberately, closed the door, locked it, not because I needed protection, but because I no longer needed to be the one waiting for permission. Back inside, I poured a glass of water, stared at the empty table in the kitchen. This table, our table, had no ghosts, only stories, laughter, and names no one forgot. I sat down, looked out the window, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. I found it while clearing out the hallway closet, a small box, dusty wrapping paper, silver ribbon faded to pale blue, my handwriting on the tag, to Mom, with love, Ava. It was from 2 birthdays ago, the year she said you didn't need to bring anything, and left it sitting near the coats all evening. No one touched it, no one asked. That night, I brought it home and slid it into the closet. Told myself I'd try again next year, but I didn't. Now, holding it, I didn't feel angry, didn't feel sorry, just still. I untied the ribbon, opened the box. Inside, a soft silk scarf. The colour of early spring, still folded, still perfect. I held it for a second, then refolded it, put the lid back on. I didn't need her to wear it, didn't need her to remember, because I remembered, not the dismissal, but the care I put into choosing it, the way I thought of her favourite shade, the way I wanted to belong. And maybe that was the part that mattered most, not whether she ever opened it, but that I gave something real, and that now I give that same care to myself. The next morning, I washed the scarf, ran it gently through cool water, watched the fabric float, soft and light, like breath. I didn't rush, didn't scrub, just let the water do what time never could, clean, without question. I hung it by the window. The spring sun came through. For the first time, the colour bloomed. It looked beautiful. Even if no one else saw it, my daughter came in, still in pyjamas. "You're washing that old scarf?" I nodded. "Why?" I smiled. "Because it's mine now." She didn't ask more, just leaned her head against my side and looked out at the sun with me. We stood there a while, quiet, easy. And in that stillness, I felt it, that slow uncoiling of something I had held too tightly for too long. I didn't need revenge, didn't want apologies wrapped in delay. I didn't want her to understand, not anymore. Because I did. I understood that some people love in broken ways, that silence can be armour, and tradition, a cage. But I was free. I didn't need her seat, or her toast, or her validation. Just my own hands holding what's mine. And maybe that is what forgiveness looks like. Not forgetting, not excusing, just choosing to live. Without the weight. It was Sunday. Clear sky. Air still warm from spring. I folded the scarf carefully. No ribbon, no box. Just the fabric, clean and soft, in my hand. We drove to the edge of town, where her house sat quiet. No cars, no laughter. Only the creak of old porchwood in the breeze. My daughter stayed in the car. She didn't ask why. I walked up the steps, laid the scarf across the chair beside the door, the same kind of folding chair they used at birthdays, at tables I was never really part of. But this time, I placed something on it. Not to return, not to accuse, just to leave it, without need. I turned, walked down the steps, toward the street, then paused, at the corner. Out of instinct, I looked back. The curtains shifted, just slightly, and behind them, her outline, still, watching. No words, no wave, just the shape of a woman who maybe had always been afraid to say anything real. And maybe, this time, she didn't need to, because I didn't need her to. I kept walking, hands empty, heart quiet. And behind me, on that chair, a piece of silk caught the sun and swayed gently, as if breathing. Sometimes we wait years for someone to say 2 simple words, "I'm sorry," But what if they never come? What if the apology sits frozen behind silence, behind pride, behind generations of people too afraid to name what they did? Do we keep waiting, keep holding the empty seat, hoping someone notices, or do we walk away, not in bitterness, but in grace? I used to think forgiveness needed witnesses, a moment, a confession. But now I know it can be a quiet morning, a clean scarf, a soft goodbye you never hear aloud, because peace doesn't shout, it just stops needing permission. So tell me, have you ever forgiven someone who never said sorry? And if not, would you?